Hey guys, so I'm back up and running again. I was going through that bit of grieving the past week, but yeah, you saw that in the last video. I think I'm a bit better now to make more videos, so I'm ramping things back up. But yeah, as I was saying in my last video, the therapeutic part of grieving while I was downsizing also led me to realize a few things, and I think a lot of you guys might also realize this. But what happened to television? And my friend and I were talking about this. My friend Jay McAllister, Boxing MMA. Go watch his channel. He's got a good channel as well. But we were talking about like TV's not the same it once was, you know. Um, yeah, when I look at the TV shows on my shelf here, most of these are standalone. Standalone is no longer a thing, you know. You look at South Park, where it came from in the early seasons of like, Cartman getting up to no good or the kids kind of trying to understand things to where it is now where every episode has to connect, it all has to be some political purpose or like I love South Park, don't get me wrong. I love the modern state of South Park. I love what they're doing. But it has significantly changed. If you were a big fan of the early seasons and didn't like the stuff they were doing with episodes that go into the next, then, it might be a bit of a throw. Look at shows like Family Guy. Like, Family Guy is kind of still standalone, I would say. Kenny versus Benny, each episode, different competition. But look at some of the shows I got in here. Like, the first reality show, obviously, we're going to shout out because I was having my break when it all happened. Ozzy Osbourne, big loss to the music industry and just the world, Ozzy Osbourne. Hulk Hogan, another big wrestler. Now, given Hulk Hogan did have controversy around him, we all know the comments, we all know what happened. We don't have to keep rehashing it. But from the impact on the business, Hulk Hogan was a big name and a huge contributor to the business. So we're not going to tear down his accomplishments. That being said, his legacy is somewhat hurt from what had happened over the years. But it's still Hulk Hogan, you've got to respect what he brought to the business. There wouldn't be a pro wrestling today in the level it is without Hogan and Vince working together to put WrestleMania 1 on the map, And yes, you could say Cyndi Lauper and all the rock and wrestling stuff. Rowdy Roddy Piper, obviously, Um, but what happened to self-contained TV, Where I could pick up any sort of season of, any sort of season episode of Bewitched, right? I got Bewitched here. You could put in any episode of Bewitched and just be entertained. You don't really get that anymore, do you? Same with stuff like Happy Days, There was some where Fonz jumps the shark and that, but you don't see that anymore these days. It's like, yeah, one episode into the other, but it was mostly self-contained to like 2 or 3 episodes. It wasn't like this big haul across the season thing. Now, given there are stuff in here where it works, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking everything, 24, for example, one of my favorite TV shows, is continuous. You tune into 24 to see what Jack Bauer will do the next week. That being said, I don't want every TV show to be 24, if that makes sense. I want to be able to pick up Married with Children. I want to be able to pick up Married with Children and say, I just want to see what Al Bundy's doing this week, or just have some little bit of a laugh, self-contained episode, 20 minutes, bite size, you might watch it while you're having dinner or something. You just want to pick up Married with Children and watch one episode. Not continue the whole season, not watch the overlying arc of the show. Now, given, I think that show would probably get cancelled if they put it back on TV. But, I am a fan of Married with Children. I will say I do like Married with Children. I grew up watching it. I have a lot of good memories growing up watching that show. And while it's not politically correct anymore, very much appreciate what Ed O'Neill brought to that show, and Katie and, David and Christina Applegate. I like what all those guys brought to the show. Like, and also, Marcy and all that, they brought a lot to the show as well. But do you understand what I'm saying? Why is it that TV is in such a bad shape at the moment? I mean, you might say, oh, everyone's went online. But people joining the streaming apps are having this same issue. It's why Netflix went out and paid $5 billion for Monday Night Raw. It's why people are paying for the pay-per-views on Disney or ESPN. It's the ESPN they always announced like last week. TV has really changed. And when the budgets became insane, because I think the budgets have a big play in this. When the budgets became insane, right, we're talking about going from a show where it might be $1 million an episode like Married with Children. To produce that episode, have it paced out, it might be less, give or take, for the actors and everything, it was about $1 million an episode to have everything all entailed in that one episode. Of course, that's paid across the season. You look at that budget, and then look at where it's at now, where it's like like 30 million an episode or something for some Marvel shows. I don't know what they pay for Star Wars or anything, but, it's insanity. And yes, it does bigger numbers. Streaming has bigger numbers. They're trying to produce these like movies. But something like the Arrowverse, I think actually got it quite right. Now, given I know a lot of people didn't like the Arrowverse, I understand this. I understand it was not the biggest sort of thing. But even like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got it, Produced these cheap. Yes, they are in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's not really connected to the MCU, but it kind of is. But Arrowverse actually got this. Yes, the production's going to look kind of crappy if you're used to the movies, but it wasn't meant to compete with that. Smallville, for example, TV was its own thing. And if you watch TV, most people understood, yes, you're not going to get movie quality. Now, given they've blurred that line now where you get movie quality at home, but you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes I just want to watch an Arrowverse. Sometimes I just want to watch a Family Guy or a South Park or old school South Park, just one self-contained episode, nothing in there. My hair is all out of whack here at the back because I got it in the ponytail or like tied up. But you know what I'm saying? The Brady Bunch, another great one. I think season 3 is where they changed to that iconic theme. The earlier seasons had that thing, but then I think season 3, I mean, they all had the iconic theme, different variations of it. But I think season 3 had the best theme, if I remember correctly. What happened to standalone? What happened to lower budget but quantity? And you have a show that could run all around the year. You could film 52 episodes and be like, okay, there's an episode every week, or 26, and that's half a year there. You have 26 episodes. Now we're getting shows like Stranger Things that have 6 to 10 episodes. Now, given they do bigger numbers, as I said, big production, big streaming services, all competing with each other. But what about stuff like Friends? What about stuff like The Office? The Office is another great one you could point at. Futurama, The Simpsons. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, given The Simpsons in some later seasons did connect a lot more up to other episodes, if they could, but for the most part it was standalone. Dragon Ball Z was very much a template for, continuous story as well. I won't mention Dragon Ball. Buffy had a continuous overlaying narrative, but realistically with Buffy, you could go into an episode of Buffy and be like, okay, I'm just going to see what Buffy's up to this week. You didn't have to, I mean, if you knew the overarching arc of what Buffy was about, you could watch any episode. You didn't have to watch the whole season. Now, given it was encouraged to watch the whole season, but it gave casuals a chance to say, you know what, I know I missed the first 10 episodes of that show, I'm going to jump on now. A lot of what got me into 24 was I came in halfway through, I believe, I think it was season 4 or 5. I came in halfway through a season, I know that. I think it was season 5, actually. Might have been season 6. I don't know. It came in halfway through a season. But if you come in halfway through a season, this had multiple different storylines going on in that show. So they solve one problem, then they go to the next. They have that problem, solve that issue. That's usually about 3 or 4 hours. Then they have the next thing that pops up. And then they continuously refresh the narrative to where if a casual fan was to come in halfway through the season, they'll go, I'll catch the rest of that when it's on DVD, but I will understand what's going on for the rest of this season because they have educated me and told me this is what you need to know. And they had the flashbacks, like this is what has happened in the day so far. This is why I think television has died in a way. And, as I said, I was talking with my friend Jay, so we brought this up about why is television so bad. And it's at that point with television where you really start to look at it's too overproduced, too over the top, and too over budgeted for. I don't know if that's real words, but I mean, as I said, if I'm watching the Arrowverse, I'm not looking for the best graphics that rival the MCU. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking at story. I'm looking at Oliver Queen. I want to know his story. Have it dark, yeah, if you want. I don't mind. I just want a good story. You know, I don't really go into it looking for movie quality when I'm at home watching on TV. Now, given TV has replaced the cinemas in a lot of way, but I just want a good story. I want something that I can go to and say, you know what? I don't know what, let's say I'm going into a show. Let's say I'm going into an episode of, let's grab a show over here. Man vs. Wild. Yeah, Bear Grylls. Let's say I'm just picking up an episode of Man vs. Wild. He's not doing a continuous survival, and yes, I know he was an actor in a lot of ways. This is not 100% accurate. He was doing some survival challenges like 10 meters away from a road. I understand. Don't tell me about Man vs. Wild. But this is a this is something that I would turn to and be like, you know what? I just want to watch Man vs. Wild. I don't care. I just want to watch something and be entertained for an hour or 40 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever I have. You pick up the show to fill your time, and you are investing that time in their show. If I'm watching Bear Grylls, like, I want to watch him do silly things on there. And yeah, given there's a lot of questionable aspects of Man vs. Wild, I mean, Les Stroud was also a good one. Survivor Man was a really good show as well. I actually preferred Les Stroud, but I also really love Bear Grylls in terms of Man vs. Wild. But do you understand what I'm saying? Am I getting through here? TV has kind of, yes, it has changed. I will say that, it has changed. But I just want to have a good show. And I just want something that I can tune into and not have to have that overlying story that I have to watch every single episode and go back and watch 16 hours of it to understand, everything. Sometimes you just want to have it, and yes, you can have the last few episodes, like Star Trek, you can have the last few episodes leading to something, or whatever, but you don't really need to have every single episode interconnected, all the stories all interconnected at all times. I just feel like as we've went more towards this template, we've kind of, that's one of the aspects that killed television. And yeah, don't know what to say about that. I think I will just end it there because yeah, I just want a good television show, Part of the thing with wrestling, and this is why, because I bring everything back to wrestling. Part of the thing with wrestling is if you picked up, yes, you will be able to follow the storylines. Yes, you can re-educate yourself. You can pick it up to the most part and say, oh, what's going on with this storyline? There are times where I've went into pay-per-views in terms of watching them, or premium live events, because we don't call them pay-per-view anymore. I've went into premium live events not following the storylines on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown for like 6 to 12 months and just being like, you know what, I watch the highlights and, if I'll pick up the rest when they pick it up. Because WWE do really great highlight packages and say, this is what you need to know. Here's the overlying arch. WrestleMania 17 had a great one between The Rock and Stone Cold where, my way underneath. If you ever want to watch how to cut a really great promo for a match, WrestleMania 17 is where you go to. You watch that promo and watch, how they did that. That is one of the premium sort of, that's a premium live event, That's how you do television. You educate them because don't assume the audience is watching at all times, Tell them, this is what you need to know before you watch this. Now, given the MCU are trying to learn this as well, I don't want to watch 400 movies with the MCU. I mean, I've watched them all, but let's say I was coming in as a casual, getting into it for the first time. It's kind of daunting to sit there. Now, given they're rebooting, DC is also doing the same thing. So the Marvel and DC are doing the same thing. They're all doing the same thing. I don't know if I said Marvel before. I might have said DC. Doesn't matter. They're all rebooting because it's so overcomplicated to where casual fans are like, yeah, I dropped off after Endgame, or I dropped off after this, or whatever. I just became, quality this, quality that. Some people say woke, some people say quality. I think it was just the quality of the stories. People would show up if it's a good story. It's why Friends is held to such regard. It's why things that, I mean, Sopranos is continuous, you could say. Sopranos is continuous. Mr. Bean, one of the classic television shows. You would think there were a million episodes of Mr. Bean. I think there were only like 14 episodes of Mr. Bean. And then the movies, obviously. Mr. Bean's been iconic. You would think there was a lot more Mr. Bean. There was 14 episodes of it. Because timing matters. And people go and revisit it. They can come in at any episode. That's what I'm trying to say. Television is something that could be revived in a way. The Addams Family, syndication helped the Addams Family through so many decades. We've got Wednesday on air now, Wednesday season 2 on Netflix. Would that survive if this was just like, oh, we're going to have a continuous story for the 60s? No, each story had a different story. Each episode had a different story. That's all I'm saying, guys. I'm gonna end it here. Go follow the Instagram if you're not already. Jamie Toomey Presents on Instagram. Gonna start doing stuff on there. I'm posting stuff to the stories, so you know you want to stay there and watch those 24-hour stories. We just hit 4,500, so thanks for all the subscribers on here on YouTube. 4,500. That's a big feat. Now we're closer to 5,000 and 10. You know, we'll hit the goals, but thanks for 45,000. If you're not subscribed, hit subscribe. Like the video, comment, put something down there. What do you think went wrong with television? Did it just become over budgeted and you just lost interest, or obviously it's migrated to streaming, but did that really kill television? Let me know down in the comments. Peace.